Billionaire Ken Griffin is slamming Mayor Mamdani for making him the poster boy for his campaign to tax the rich.
Yeah, Griffin's saying that the mayor's rhetoric is putting his life in danger.
I've lived in this city long enough to know when something feels off. I want to welcome you to Left Wing Watch, where we follow the promises and then we follow the bill.
Mayor Mamdani began targeting Ken Griffin during his campaign for mayor. But to Griffin, it apparently became personal when the mayor posted a video that not only attacked him, but included where he lived.
I moved to New York because I believed in this city. Not the postcard version, the real one. The city where your ambition has a place to land. Where if you work hard enough, something happens. That's what this city promised, and I bought it. I'm still here.
But something is happening right now that I cannot ignore anymore. And I think if you're watching this, whether you live here or you used to, or you just care about what cities become, you need to understand what is actually going on. Not the politics of it, the math of it, because the math is terrifying. In the last 90 days, New York City's new mayor has sparked a financial crisis that is now moving faster than anyone can contain. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how we got here, who was responsible, and what it's going to cost.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Zoran Mamdani is a 34-year-old Democratic Socialist, whatever that means. I want you to really sit with this. He had never run anything. Not a business, not a large organization, not even a mid-sized nonprofit. He was a state assemblyman, a politician, a man whose entire career has been about ideas, about what the world should look like, not about the hard, unglamorous work of making things actually function. And look, I want to be honest with you here, because I think honesty is the only thing that makes this conversation worth having. I am not on the side of billionaires. I don't think the system is fair. I don't think the people at the very top of this economy got there purely on merit. I think the game is rigged, and I think most people who are paying attention already know that. But here's what I've learned. Knowing that the system is broken doesn't automatically make you qualified to fix it. And promising people things you cannot deliver, things that sound like justice but are actually just campaign poetry, that's not courage. That's something else. That's a con.
There's free childcare, city-owned grocery stores. I mean, I've been to city-owned grocery stores in Havana, Cuba. You don't want to go to those.
Free buses, rent-frees, city-owned supermarkets in every borough. That was the promise. Within weeks of taking office, the free buses were quietly shelved. The rent-frees got delayed. And the supermarkets? The first one won't open for 2 or 3 years. And it's already tens of millions over budget. You want to know what an Aldi store cost to build? About $1 million. Mamdani's version, his city-owned version, cost $30 million per borough. There were 5 boroughs.
I'm not saying that to take a side. I'm saying that because that is the difference between a promise and a plan. And the people who voted for him, who needed those things to be real, deserved a plan. But nothing prepared me for what happened next. Because this is the moment where I stopped being just frustrated and started being genuinely worried. Mamdani is trying to push through a pied-à-terre tax. A tax on secondary homes worth more than $5 million. Fine, I don't have a problem with that conversation. That's a legitimate policy debate. But he can't get it done. Albany won't move. The governor isn't on board. He's hitting walls everywhere he turns. So what does he do? He picks up a camera. He walks to one of the most expensive addresses in the world, and he points up at the building and names the man who lives there. Ken Griffin, billionaire, founder of Citadel. And he essentially says on camera for the internet, that guy right there is who we're coming for.
When I ran for mayor, I said I was going to tax the rich. Well, today, we're taxing the rich. I'm thrilled to announce we've secured a pied-à-terre tax, the first in New York's history. This is an annual fee on luxury properties worth more than $5 million, whose owners do not live full-time in the city. Like for this penthouse. which hedge fund CEO Ken Griffin bought for $238 million. This peer-to-tear tax is specifically designed for the richest of the rich, those who store their wealth in New York City real estate but who don't actually live here. But even so, they're able to reap the huge financial rewards of owning property in, dare I say, the greatest city in the world. And most of the time, these units are sitting empty, since again, they don't actually live here. This is a fundamentally unfair system that hurts working New Yorkers. Now, it's coming to an end.
Now, I want to be careful here because I know exactly how this sounds. And I want you to know that I understand why that moment felt good to a lot of people. I get it. I really do. The image of a politician finally pointing at one of these untouchable figures and saying, there's something that feels like justice in that. I understand the appeal, but here's what actually happened after that video. Ken Griffin said the planned development at 350 Park Avenue, a $6 billion project, 15,000 jobs, construction workers, permanent positions, the kind of economic activity that actually touches regular people's lives, he said it might not move forward.
He seems to have forgotten that the CEO of another American company was assassinated just blocks from where I live in New York. And to put any citizen in harm's way is just inappropriate for one of our political leaders.
Griffin was referring to the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, which is why he was upset and lashed out at the mayor's video.
Like this penthouse, which hedge fund CEO Ken Griffin bought for $238 million.
$6 billion, 15,000 jobs, because of a video. And I keep coming back to this question that I can't answer. Who does that help? Which working New Yorker's life got better because of that video? Because I can tell you whose life got worse. The construction workers who were counting on that project.
The small businesses that would have opened around it, the tax revenue that would have gone into the budget that is already $5 billion in the hole. That's not fighting the system. That's burning down the neighborhood to prove a point. And then, and this is the part that really got to me, his own governor shut him down. Kathy Hochul, a Democrat, the governor of the state of New York, she looked at what her own mayor was doing, and she said publicly, on the record, that's not happening. And then she quietly scheduled a private meeting with Ken Griffin.
New front in Manhattan's tax tussle with billionaires, business leaders, and politicians all in the mix today. Governor Hochul is meeting with billionaire Ken Griffin, trying to ease tensions with the hedge fund CEO over the proposed pied-à-terre tax.
The man Mamdani had just put on blast. She walked into that room without Mamdani, without cameras, without a viral video, and she essentially said, "We are not that. We are still a city that you can do business in." I don't even like Hochul. I don't think she's been a particularly good governor. But in this moment, she did something that Mamdani seems genuinely incapable of. She understood that governing a city means managing consequences, not just making statements. When your own party publicly distances itself from you, when the governor of your state has to go clean up your mess, that's not a policy disagreement. That is a signal. That is the people around you telling you that what you're doing is not working. And the tragedy is that I don't think he heard it.
Let me show you the actual numbers, because this is the part that keeps me up at night. New York City is sitting on a $7.1 billion budget deficit, largest since the Great Recession. And the way Mamdani is planning to close that gap, I want you to understand what this actually means for real people. He is deferring pension payments, pushing them out into the 2040s. The pension money owed to teachers, transit workers, sanitation workers, people who spent their careers being told that the retirement was the deal. That was the promise in exchange for a public servant's salary. That money is being pushed down the road so that the books look balanced today. There is a law in New York State called the Financial Control Act. It was passed in 1975 after New York City nearly went bankrupt. And I mean that literally. The city almost ceased to function. That law exists specifically to prevent this from happening again. And the people who know this city's financial history are now starting to ask questions that nobody in City Hall seems to want to answer.
Meanwhile, and this one really got me, Mamdani has redefined what counts as economically struggling in New York City. The new threshold? $160,000 a year. He is telling this city that a family making $160,000 a year needs government assistance. I'm not saying people aren't struggling. They are. This city is expensive in ways that are genuinely cruel. But when you expand the definition of need that far, you have to ask, where does the money come from? And the answer, the only possible answer, is from the people he hasn't taxed yet, which is you, which is me, which is everyone in this city who isn't a billionaire and isn't in the bracket he's decided is officially poor.
115,000 people left New York City in 2025 before he even fully took power. And I know, the easy response to that is good riddance. They were probably rich anyway. I've heard that. I've seen the comments. And some of them were rich. Some of them were. But a lot of them weren't. A lot of them were just people who did the math and decided they couldn't afford to stay for what was coming. Teachers, small business owners, middle-class families from Queens. People who loved this city and left anyway because loving something doesn't pay your rent when the numbers stop working. And this is the part that I really need you to hear, because we have seen this before. Not here, but we've watched it happen in real time in other cities. And somehow we keep acting like it can't happen here.
In Seattle, when they asked the mayor about wealthy residents leaving, she said, bye.
If, the ones that leave, bye.
Howard Schultz, not a conservative, a lifelong Democrat, someone who gave millions to Democratic causes, he's already leaving Washington state. Starbucks is moving major operations to Nashville. In California, researchers estimate that nearly $800 billion in wealth has left the state in anticipation of a new billionaire tax, not because of the tax itself yet, just the anticipation of it. Here is the pattern. Every time, tax the wealthy leave, the tax base shrinks, the city needs more revenue, so they move down the income ladder. And the middle class, the people who can't afford to leave but also can't absorb what's coming, they're the ones who end up paying for a promise that was never kept. That's not a conservative argument. That's just what happens. We've watched it happen, and we're watching it start to happen here.
I want to come back to where I started, because I don't want to be another voice on the internet adding noise to a conversation that already has too much of it. I'm not defending billionaires. I'm not defending a system that I think has been fundamentally unfair for a long time. I'm not saying the old way was working. It wasn't. Rent is too high. The subway is broken. The gap between what this city promises and what it actually delivers to most people who live here has been a wound for decades. But what I'm watching right now is someone using that wound as a stage. Someone who figured out that if you point at the right villain and make the right promises, people will hand you power. And then once you have it, you defer the pensions. You abandon the free buses. You build a $30 million supermarket that won't open for 3 years. And you film yourself outside a billionaire's window so that when nothing works, at least you have a video that proves you tried.